So have you been buying bigger phones only because they've always got the better hardware specs? Well, you don't have to anymore. Asus has thrown almost everything there is at this phone, but somehow kept it small. This phone is awesome. So let's talk build. We've got this new flat design Asus went with this year. Nice flat aluminum chassis with the rounded corners. It's a bit of a thicker boy this time with that slightly extended back panel, but that's because it's got a bigger battery, baby. And that back panel, it's not glass, obviously, so it won't shatter on you if you drop it without a case. And because it's made from this neat soft polymer material, you're almost compelled to go caseless because it's just so nice to hold without one. Like, the best way I can describe the feeling is like a plastic suede, hard but buttery soft. Now, it comes in 4 colors, and I actually really like them all, but I would recommend one of the lighter colors, like either starry blue or moonlight white, because they're gonna be less likely to show scratches and fingerprints, which unfortunately this type of material is fairly prone to, so that's why I've been using the case it comes with. The camera bumps are like anxiety-inducing large though. Like, first off, laying flat on a table, the thing pivots like the scales of justice, but not only that, I'm constantly paranoid about something cracking those window-sized camera lenses. We've got a pair of stereo speakers, one on the bottom and the other's the earpiece speaker. Audio's been tuned by D-Rack, and folks, I don't know how other reviewers haven't focused on this more, but it sounds fantastic. It's full sounding across the board, and it gets loud, but it's also got this outdoor mode you can enable, which will give your eardrums a heart attack in close proximity at max volume, but should cut through any loud noises, and actually works really well if you forgot your Bluetooth speaker at home, which I've done a couple of times now since pocketing this phone. And for those of you that still prefer to use wired headphones, Asus was kind enough not to skimp on the headphones jack. Asus also didn't skimp on the fingerprint reader. In fact, they moved it to the side, integrated it with the power button, and gave it a bunch of features. So first off, holy smokes, this has got to be the best fingerprint reader ever. Period. Like, it's so fast and accurate that because the placement is so perfect to where my thumb wants to rest, I accidentally unlock it all the time just from holding it. So I'm not gonna lie, that's been taking some getting used to. But then we get into the features where we can set it as a double or long press shortcut to launch any app we want. There's also this quick access swipe so you can pull down the notification shade in any app, even full screen apps like games, for example, which is useful, but I stopped using it after a couple of days because I was just constantly accidentally activating it, which got super annoying. Now, on the front, we've got this really nice 5.9-inch display covered in Gorilla Glass Victus. It's a Super AMOLED Full HD Plus panel at 2400 by 1080. It supports HDR10 Plus with a peak brightness of 1100 nits, so it can get bright when it needs to, and it's got 112% DCI-P3 or 151% sRGB coverage, so color reproduction's very good. Now, I've got it set to natural because oddly enough, it's a little more saturated than the other options, but you could always drop down to customized and just crank that saturation up all the way if you wanted to know what it looks like when you're on mushrooms. The 240 Hz touch sampling rate and 120 Hz refresh rate from the display combined with the latest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and either 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, we get not only a smooth and snappy user experience, but also some great gaming capabilities. Now, while keeping in mind this isn't a dedicated gaming phone like the Asus ROG Phone 6, which has an active cooling fan, Asus did upgrade the passive cooling system, which I found lets the phone run demanding games at medium graphics for long periods of time while still maintaining over 100 FPS. But maxing out game graphics, it seems to hit a thermal wall fairly soon while significantly dropping those high frame rates. So it is capable of high performance gaming, just make sure you drop down the graphics a tad if you start to notice some dips. Or using the Game Genie software, you could always play around with dropping down the device performance settings. Your frames will suffer a bit, but it won't get as hot and you'll save some battery life while you're at it. By the way, love the Game Genie software. Hands down my favorite mobile gaming software. Has all the usual bells and whistles, but also has the best live stats floating window there is. Anyways, the Zenfone 9 comes with Android 12 running Zen UI over top, along with 2 years of Android updates and 2+ years of security patches. It's a feature-packed but very lightweight software experience. So for example, while this isn't completely unheard of, using the status bar icon manager, you can go full OCD and have a completely clean status bar if you wanted by disabling every single icon. The animation speeds, which I always change when setting up a new phone, is user-facing in the display settings instead of hidden under developer options like a red-headed stepchild. We've got some system performance modes in the battery settings, along with plenty of battery saving options, which quite frankly I never felt the need to use, but we'll get to that soon. There's an edge tool so you can quick launch any apps into floating windows. I didn't really get much use out of it, so I keep it disabled. There's also something called back double tap. Now, I know this is gonna be a tough one, but guess how many times you have to tap the back to activate this feature. So you can launch the camera or turn on and off the flashlight along with some other basic stuff, but this is another one of those things that gets activated accidentally too often, so I just keep it disabled too. There's zero bloatware, just a few Asus apps like the calculator, clock, weather app, and photo gallery, that sort of thing. Plus, there's no annoyingly forced ecosystem like with Samsung phones, so you won't have any weird background processes draining the battery or crippling performance behind the scenes, and best of all, no irritating persistent notifications to sign up for services or anything stupid like that. It's a powerfully quiet software experience, if that makes sense. Now, as for battery life, yo, let me tell you, Asus isn't screwing around here. So the Zenfone 9 comes with a 4300 mAh battery, while the Galaxy S22, which you could say is one of its closest competitors, only has a 3800 mAh battery. Just wanted to throw that out there. And with that 4300 mAh battery, I can easily crush a full day while seeing a little over 7 hours of screen on time, and lighter usage days usually gives me like 2 days, which is really good for a compact phone. But we can take that battery life even further with all the different battery saving options. We've even got the option to adjust how the device charges to protect the overall lifespan, which still isn't a very common option with most phones these days yet. Unfortunately, there's no wireless charging, which is a bit of a downer for me because I do use wireless chargers around the house regularly. There is a 30-watt charger that comes in the box though. Yeah, it's gonna be slower to charge than phones that come with 65-watt and up chargers, but I guess that's gonna help with battery lifespan, so take that as you will. For cameras, starting with the rear, we've got a main 50 megapixel camera with a new 6-axis hybrid gimbal providing that optical image stabilization. And then we've got the 12 megapixel ultra wide. Now, in general, I'd argue that photo quality can be better than good enough, but not great. For example, some issues I ran into were some trouble with autofocus, over sharpening, and a lot of highlight clipping. So tap to expose is your best friend with these cameras, as I discovered while trying to take some photos of my day at the river. As you can see, my main subjects, like my dog for example, are underexposed while the background highlights get clipped. Colors look great though. Sometimes auto HDR is a bit heavy-handed, and so we might get a sort of like halo effect around some objects, but man, when that lighting is just right, I was able to take some really nice shots, and quite frankly, the vast majority of photos, despite some of the issues I've faced, look really good. But we do get a pro mode, so most if not all these complaints can be rectified with a bit of patience and willingness to dial in the settings, which I'm not because I'm impatient and lazy. Now, low light is a real struggle here. There's huge loss in detail and highlights get clipped, which means they've dropped the shutter speed too low, and because of that, we get a lot of blurry images. But throw it in a night mode, and everything changes. Like great detail, good exposure, objects are sharp, and best of all, no blur. I think Asus did a fantastic job with the balance between image stacking, shutter speed, and utilizing the gimbal. I'm really happy with the night mode on this phone. Video quality is awesome, especially with that gimbal. Now we've got 30 or 60p at 4K and 24p at 8K, and we've even got an HDR video mode. We've also got a pro video mode, which is pretty neat if you think about it, because you can dial in your exact video settings and get super buttery smooth video thanks to that new 6-axis gimbal for some really nice cinematic shots. Now, the 12 megapixel selfie camera has this ugly silver ring around it, so it's a bit more visible on the display, which I'm not a fan of, but the photo quality is great. Again, sometimes auto HDR is a bit heavy and overprocessed looking, so I'd recommend turning it off, but usually skin tones look great. So yeah, Asus did an awesome job with this phone. I'm still getting used to the fingerprint reader location and the lack of wireless charging, but neither of those things really bother me. And when I'm getting battery life like this, performance like this, a user experience like this, when it comes to compact phones, I can't see myself using any other device as my main. I highly recommend the Zenfone 9. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Cheers.